Keep your foot hard on the pedal. Son, never mind them brakes. Let it all hang out, cause we gotta run the bank. Well, the boys are thirsty in Atlanta, and there's beer in Texarkana, and we'll bring it back no matter what it takes.
To his fans, Jerry Reed seemed to have it all. But behind the fame was a story few people fully understood. Long before he became a country music star, he faced hardships that nearly changed the course of his life. And even at the height of his success, he was carrying burdens the public never saw. So, what really happened to Jerry Reed? And how did one of country music's most beloved entertainers end up facing such a heartbreaking ending? Let's take a closer look at the life he lived away from the spotlight. Join us as we uncover the remarkable life and heartbreaking final chapter of Jerry Reed. It all began in his childhood. Long before Jerry Reed became a celebrated public figure, he was a child growing up in circumstances that offered very little indication of the success he came into. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Reed was from a family that struggled to make ends meet. His parents worked demanding jobs at a cotton mill, yet the household's financial difficulties were only part of a much larger problem. When Reed was still an infant, his parents' marriage began to fall apart. Their separation created difficulties that followed him throughout much of his early childhood. With neither parent fully able to provide stability on their own, Reed and his sister often found themselves moving between family members and spending most of their time away from home. Despite those challenges, there was one thing that remained surprisingly constant with him: music. Whenever Reed visited his relatives in Rockmart, Georgia, he found himself surrounded by the sounds of country music. The area had musical roots, and those visits left a lasting impression on him. Before he could understand what the music business was all about, he had already become fascinated by the performers he heard on the radio. While other children dreamed about becoming athletes, firefighters, or soldiers, Reed had a much simpler vision for his future. He wanted to stand on a stage and entertain people. The dream may have sounded unrealistic given his circumstances, but not to him. Years later, Reed recalled climbing onto piles of firewood and pretending they were concert stages. Armed with nothing more than a hairbrush serving as a microphone, he would imitate the performers he listened to on the radio. His mother recognized that passion before almost anyone else did. Although money was scarce, she understood how much music meant to her son. After saving what little she could, she eventually got him an old used guitar from a neighbor. It wasn't fancy in any way. In fact, it was far from perfect, but for Reed, it was a dream come true. His guitar quickly became the center of his world. Since the family could not afford accessories, he improvised wherever necessary. Instead of a proper pick, he often used a coin. Instead of formal lessons, he learned from observation and repetition. Every spare moment he could get became an opportunity to practice. Without realizing it, the young boy who had once entertained himself on a woodpile was beginning to build the foundation of a career that would eventually make him famous. But before he could become a star, he had to develop a style unlike anything country music had seen, and that style was the beginning of a successful career. The teenager who refused to learn the right way. Getting a guitar should have been the beginning of a traditional musical education. For Jerry Reed, it was the very reason he rejected one. After receiving his first guitar, Reed became obsessed with learning everything he could about the instrument. His mother taught him a few basic chords, but he wanted more. Like many aspiring musicians, he eventually sought formal instruction. But the lessons did not last long. According to Reed, he took only a few guitar lessons in his life before deciding they were not for him. During one lesson, an instructor reportedly told him to stop using his thumb pick and adopt a more conventional playing method. The advice might have come from genuine concern, but to Reed, it felt as if someone were asking him to abandon the style that already felt natural to him. Instead of following the teacher's instructions, he chose to walk away. Reed believed that copying other people would only make him sound like everyone else. If he was going to succeed, he wanted to do it in a way that felt entirely his own. Without instructors to guide him, Reed spent countless hours teaching himself. He listened carefully to records, studied performances, and experimented with techniques until he discovered sounds that interested him. Sometimes that meant repeating the same passage over and over. One artist in particular influenced him more than anyone else during this period. That artist was Merle Travis. Travis had developed a finger-picking technique that would later become known as Travis picking. His playing sounded fluid, rhythmic, and unlike anything Reed had heard before. More importantly, Travis proved that a guitarist did not need to sound like everybody else. When Reed first heard songs such as "I Am a Pilgrim," he was completely captivated. The guitar seemed to move with a life of its own. It wasn't just accompanying the music, it was telling part of the story. Intrigued by his discovery, Reed began creating a style that borrowed from several influences while remaining distinctly his own. Over time, his technique evolved into what many musicians later referred to as the claw style, because of the unique positioning of his picking hand. At first, nobody knew what to make of it. Some admired it, others found it unusual. A few felt it was out of place. But Reed kept developing it because it allowed him to create sounds he couldn't achieve any other way. Years later, countless guitarists now study that same technique, hoping to understand how he made it look so effortless. Ironically, the style that helped him become famous existed largely because he ignored the advice meant to improve him. Still, mastering the guitar was only part of the challenge. Reed needed people to actually hear him play, and the opportunity that changed everything came from an entirely unexpected source: the chance meeting that shaped his future. By the time Jerry Reed reached his teenage years, he had already made a decision that would change the rest of his life. School no longer interested him nearly as much as music. While many of his classmates were thinking about graduating and choosing future careers, Reed spent most of his free time immersed in his guitar, songwriting, and performing wherever he could find an audience. His problem at this point was that his talent alone couldn't create an opportunity. He needed someone to open that first door. For Reed, that door appeared through an unlikely connection. During one of his performances, a local Atlanta police officer named Leroy Suter became impressed by the teenager's guitar skills. Leroy believed Reed had something special and decided to introduce him to someone who could potentially help advance his career. This person was Bill Lowry. At the time, Bill was a popular radio personality, music publisher, and promoter within the Atlanta music scene. He had experience spotting talent and helping artists find opportunities. For Reed, meeting someone like Lowry could be life-changing. Still, nothing was guaranteed. When Reed arrived for his audition, he faced a choice. Most aspiring artists would have performed a popular hit song to showcase their abilities, but Reed chose a completely different approach. Instead of performing a popular song, he played one of his own original compositions. The song reportedly had the unusual title, Aunt Maud's Wooden Leg. Even the name sounded unique. That decision immediately separated him from countless other hopeful performers. Rather than presenting himself as someone who could imitate successful artists, Reed presented himself as a creator with ideas of his own. And of course, Lowry was intrigued and decided to mentor him. The guidance arrived at exactly the right moment. Although Reed possessed remarkable natural ability, he still had plenty to learn about songwriting, stage presence, and navigating the music business. Lowry began introducing him to professional opportunities that would have been impossible for a teenager to secure on their own. In no time, Reed landed one of the biggest opportunities of his young career. He was offered a touring position as an opening act for Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours. Suddenly, he wasn't just playing local venues anymore. He was now sharing stages with established country music stars and gaining first-hand experience inside the industry he desperately wanted to join. The tour also confirmed something Reed had suspected for years. Music was not going to remain a hobby. It was now his life. After experiencing the road and seeing professional performers at work, the idea of returning to a conventional path wasn't palatable. The more success he found, the less interested he became in anything else. Eventually, he made a decision that shocked many people around him. A decision that placed his entire future on the line. Betting everything on music. For most teenagers, leaving school before graduation would have been considered reckless. But for Jerry Reed, it was the only logical choice. By his junior year of high school, music had become more than a passion. Reed found it increasingly difficult to focus on traditional education. He already knew what he wanted to become. And in his mind, every hour spent away from music felt like an hour wasted. Eventually, he made his decision. He left school. To help support himself, Reed took a job at an Atlanta cotton mill, the same type of environment where his parents had spent years working. The work was demanding, repetitive, and physically exhausting. Yet it also reinforced something he had learned while growing up. He really wanted a different future. And each day at the mill reminded him why he was willing to take risks in pursuit of music. Once work ended, he immediately shifted his focus back to performing. Night after night, he played wherever he could find an audience. Honky-tonks, bars, dance halls, and local venues became his training ground. He learned how to hold a crowd's attention, which songs connected with audiences, and how to recover when things went wrong. Most importantly, he learned how to entertain. At first, Reed's style reflected the artists he admired. Like many young performers, he borrowed elements from established stars while trying to find his own voice. Influences such as Hank Williams and Tommy Collins could be heard in some of his early work. But even then, there were signs that Reed was moving in a different direction. His guitar playing was unusual. His sense of humor often appeared in his songwriting, and his stage presence carried a relaxed confidence that audiences seemed to enjoy. The more he performed, the stronger his local reputation became. People began talking about the young guitarist who could seemingly play anything. Musicians took notice of him, and fans started showing up specifically to watch him perform. Those small victories eventually led to bigger opportunities. Through his growing connection with Bill Lowry, Reed began working more closely with musicians and industry professionals throughout Atlanta. He also found employment as a part-time radio disc jockey, allowing him to remain connected to the world of music even when he wasn't performing. The arrangement helped him survive financially while continuing to develop his craft. Then, at just 18 years old, he achieved something that transformed him from a local talent into a recording artist. For the very first time, Jerry Reed was about to release music with his own name attached to it. And once he returned home, he would finally make the move he had dreamed about since childhood. The move that brought him to the very heart of country music. His breakthrough, his fame, and the tragedy that followed. When Jerry Reed completed his military service and returned home, he headed straight for Nashville. For years, that city had existed in his imagination as the center of everything he wanted. It was where country music's biggest stars lived, recorded, and built their careers. If Reed truly wanted to become more than a respected songwriter and session musician, this was where it had to happen. In 1962, he and his wife, Priscilla Mitchell, made the move. Mitchell was already building a successful career of her own, and together they formed a partnership that would last for decades. While many marriages in the entertainment industry struggled under the weight of fame and constant travel, theirs endured through both success and hardship. After signing with different labels and continuing to work as both a performer and songwriter, he caught the attention of Chet Atkins. That relationship became one of the most important of his career. Unlike some producers who attempted to reshape artists into marketable products, Atkins encouraged Reed to embrace the qualities that made him unique. Rather than forcing him into the regular mold, he gave him the freedom to experiment. And as expected, the results were extraordinary. As Reed grew more confident, his distinctive guitar style became one of his defining trademarks. Musicians began referring to his technique as the claw, and fellow guitarists marveled at the speed, precision, and creativity of his playing. Then came the songs that pushed him into another level of recognition. One of the most significant was Guitar Man. The song attracted the attention of Elvis Presley, who loved it enough to record his own version. The years that followed brought hit records, chart success, and industry recognition. Songs such as When You're Hot, She Got the Gold Mine, and Eastbound and Down helped cement his place in country music history. The awards followed as well. Reed earned multiple Grammy Awards and established himself as one of the most influential guitarists of his generation. Beyond music, he also became a recognizable actor, introducing his personality to entirely new audiences through film and television. But real life rarely follows such a neat script. Throughout much of his adult life, Reed struggled with a habit that would eventually have devastating consequences. Unlike many celebrity tragedies, it wasn't linked to alcohol or illegal drugs. It was smoking. For years, Reed battled a heavy cigarette addiction. Friends later revealed that he repeatedly tried to quit, but found it incredibly difficult. Even after publicly acknowledging the dangers of smoking, he continued fighting a habit that had become deeply ingrained. Eventually, the health consequences caught up with him. On September 1, 2008, Jerry Reed passed away in Nashville at the age of 71 due to complications related to emphysema. The loss marked the end of an extraordinary career. His influence didn't die with him. His songs continue to be performed. His guitar techniques continue to be studied. And generations of musicians still look to his work as proof that originality can leave a lasting mark on an industry. Yet while Jerry Reed's final chapter had come to an end, the impact of his career was only beginning to reveal itself. The true measure of his success wouldn't be found in the awards he won or the records he sold, but in the legacy he left behind. His legacy lives on. For many artists, fame fades with time. Jerry Reed's influence took a very different path. Long after his final performance, musicians continued studying the techniques that made him one of the most distinctive guitarists of his generation. His unique claw style remained a source of fascination for aspiring players who wanted to understand how he created sounds that seemed impossible to replicate. His songwriting legacy proved just as enduring. The same creativity that once caught the attention of artists like Johnny Cash, Gene Vincent, and Elvis Presley continued inspiring new generations of performers. Songs that Reed wrote decades earlier remained part of country music's history, while recordings such as When You're Hot, She Got the Gold Mine, Guitar Man, and Eastbound and Down continued introducing his work to newer audiences. His influence also extended beyond music. Through his film and television appearances, Reed became more than a country star. He became a recognizable entertainer whose personality connected with audiences who may never have picked up one of his records. That crossover appeal helped ensure that his name remained familiar even as the music industry evolved. His family played a role in preserving that legacy as well. Beyond the records and awards, Reed left behind something equally important: respect from fellow musicians. Many guitarists viewed him as a player's player, someone whose technical ability earned admiration even from seasoned professionals. Decades after his biggest hits, his performances continued circulating among music enthusiasts who regarded his work as both innovative and remarkably difficult to duplicate. Throughout the years, the musical tradition that meant so much to Reed continued through his loved ones, helping keep his contributions alive for future generations. The little boy who once stood on a woodpile pretending to perform had accomplished something few entertainers ever achieve. He had built a body of work that outlived him. Today, Jerry Reed is remembered not only for the success he achieved, but for the originality that made that success possible. He ignored conventions, trusted his instincts, and created a style that nobody else could truly duplicate. In the end, Jerry Reed achieved exactly what he dreamed about as a child: becoming a star. The difference is that his impact lasted far longer than fame ever could. Did Jerry Reed become one of country music's greatest innovators because he ignored the rules others tried to teach him? And if he had chosen the safer path that so many people expected, would the world have ever discovered the musician who helped shape an entire generation of country music? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.